Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Is this pump the real deal or just a fake out designed to trap bulls? Well, I'll tell you this at the outset of the video. Out of the dozens of chart analysts that I follow, the slight crypto price pump today hasn't caused any of them to believe anything differently compared to just yesterday or at any point in the last week, really. Nothing new has triggered on the charts in that regard. The analysts that were bears yesterday, they're still bears, and the analysts that were bulls yesterday, well, not surprisingly, they're still bulls. But I'm going to show you fresh analysis and commentary from 11 different XRP chart analysts, including a few who are still predicting double-digit price action for XRP this market cycle. And I'll tell you this, I still firmly believe that the best is yet to come. I do not believe that we have peaked for this market cycle. Just my humble opinion. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 6:02 p.m. Central Time, Wednesday, November 26, 2025. XRP is $2.22. Bitcoin is $90,473. And I'll tell you what, even though I kind of don't give a shit about Bitcoin, I got to tell you this. I am very happy to see it above $90,000 again, just because it does lead the market. I'm just not that excited about it. Nothing against it. It is one of my largest individual crypto holdings. I have been holding Bitcoin for over 8 years, but that's also true of a lot of coins like Ethereum and XRP, Chainlink, Cardano, Tron. There's all sorts of coins I've been holding since 2017. But still happy to see that Bitcoin is leading the way. Historically, that's what it does. And if, in fact, honestly, here's how little I care. If Bitcoin's always number one in market cap, I don't give a damn as long as I get mine. How many of you feel the same way? I mean, yeah, it would be great to see XRP number one in market cap since I'm biased and I would, it's my largest individual holding. But honestly, as long as Bitcoin just keeps leading the way, and in a way, I don't mind it because Bitcoin peaks first. So you can kind of use that signal. And when we finally get that, you'll get a better feel for, especially if altcoins are popping off, you'll have a better signal, a better idea of where we likely are in the market cycle, but we are not at end times so far as I'm concerned. Not if history is to rhyme with itself. But here's a post that I shared just this afternoon at 1:06 p.m., so what, about 5 hours ago? And I shared the screen grab, XRP at $2.23 at the time, and I wrote, XRP at $2.23 and Bitcoin back above $90,000 right now. Is this just a relief rally or the real deal? And I was questioning this because in a couple days leading up to this, there were all sorts of analysts. Some of them I don't follow necessarily intensely, but some of them were warning that it was actually likely we were going to see a move to the upside, perhaps into the range that we're in right now, but it would be just a relief rally, a very temporary moment in time. And some analysts still predicting that we're actually going to go lower than what we've seen to this point, and I've been curious about it. Now, chart analyst Crypto Michael, who, by the way, did accurately call XRP breaking out this market cycle, he was adamant about that, and he was right. He thinks the bottom's in. And so he shared this post this afternoon at 2:45 p.m. Central, just a few hours ago. Bitcoin price chart here, and he said, final leg down called, check. And you can see the post that he's talking about there on the screen right there, and then he says $80,000 bottom called, check. It says, now we ride to glory. The printing season has begun. So he's bold here. I hope he's right. I prefer that he's right. He thinks that the bottom is in for Bitcoin at around $80,000. And now the best is yet ahead. And we're going to see it continue resuming to the upside. And he has still been insisting that, of course, that the cycle top is not in. And he firmly believes XRP is going to go into double-digit price action. He has not changed. From anything he's published publicly, he has not changed his perspective on that whatsoever. Here's a post from Bitcoin Vector. It's run by the guys over at Swissblock, the on-chain analytics firm. And they wrote the following. Bitcoin is attacking $90,000. And I'll pause and note, this is posted just a few hours ago at 2:47 p.m. Central, so it's pretty fresh stuff here. And he says, Bitcoin is attacking $90,000, but we are still in a high-risk environment, and momentum has not ignited. Bitcoin must brew momentum to break the compression that's been forming since the all-time high. The bullish path is clear. A first close inside the $89,000 to $90,000 zone, consolidation above this area with an extension toward $91,500, a full breakout through the $93,500 to $95,000 compression band. And during this process, the risk-off signal needs to drop into a low-risk regime, showing buyers finally overwhelming sellers while momentum begins to develop. Otherwise, with momentum absent and risk still elevated, every move up remains tactical, not every move up remains tactical reaction, not structural recovery. And so that's a little bit of hesitation right there, which is perfectly fine if that's what you see in the data. That's what you see in the data. Just warning, okay, nothing there yet enough to convince us that we're moving to the upside. And look, I appreciate accounts like this. This is why I like the guys at Swissblock. They also run Glassnode, another on-chain analytics firm. And I love that they look at data, they say, here's what it means from a historical perspective, and they're very even-keeled about it. I very much like that. Here's a post from chart analyst Jelly. He said, this bounce is nice, but bulls have to have a lot more work to do. Multiple high time frame resistance levels ahead. Reclaiming $91,000 to $93,000 would be a great start. And of course, talking about Bitcoin there. And so there's another analyst that I follow who is, saying nice to see it. This is kind of it's pretty obvious. Who wouldn't like to see that? But it's just not confirmation that we're going to have a full-on breakout ahead. So I hope that happens. I know you hope that happens because the entire asset class moves in tandem. But either way, it's still coming, and I still firmly believe in this most recent story. And I've done a full breakdown of this, so I won't in this video. But as far as what's been suppressing price recently, it's the market maker or market makers. It could be more than one that just had a really bad day on October 10th this year. Market absolutely cratered. They got stuck with a whole bunch of crypto, Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, you name it. They got stuck with a whole bunch of crypto unexpectedly. So they bought it. I mean, they bought it intentionally, but then suddenly they couldn't hedge against it, and so they were overexposed. Because as a market maker, you don't care what directionally where it goes. You just want to make the spread. And so they got stuck with a whole bunch of crypto since they couldn't hedge against it because they purchased and they were trying to almost instantaneously hedge. That's what you do, and it's all automated in the system. But right after they purchased it, inside of like a second or two or however long it took, but that short of a time frame, everything fell apart. And so they purchased, they couldn't execute the hedge, prices plummeted, now you're overexposed. So as a result of the contractual agreements that they have from lenders, there was forced selling that's been occurring for the last, almost 7 weeks at this point. And normally those things take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to play out. So there probably is some selling still going on behind the scenes. And it's very cyclical, so we can have a high level of confidence this is indeed what's happening. This is indeed what's been suppressing the price. And so it's something that happened in the real world that's having a negative impact, but it can't persist forever. It can't and it won't. So if it is still happening, and it probably is, it's going to be wrapped up pretty damn soon here. And then once that forced pressure is gone, which is it was, to be clear, massive pressure on the sell side. Once that's gone, it's gone. And then all you're left with is the people who are bulls, because everybody else also on top of that already capitulated. Like most of the people who are going to capitulate, they're pretty much gone now. So you'll love to see that. Here's a post from chart analyst Tech Dev. He says, many think the cycle has topped. Some think months ago. What if we're barely halfway with the parabolic phase yet to begin? This cycle's uniquely glacial pace is confounding many. Time can shake as many loose as volatility, if not more. Okay, I agree with him. I find this argument, I don't know for sure if it's right, but I find this particular argument particularly compelling, and I haven't found a better explanation. I learned this initially from Raoul Paul and Julian Biddle over at Global Macro Investor, GMI. And what he's playing into right here is his thesis, and he's believed this for a long time too, over a year, so credit to Tech Dev also, of course. But he has been articulating also, hey guys, looks like the cycle's lengthening a bit, and Raoul Paul has done a great job explaining why. He's noted, it has to do with debt refinancing that has shifted from 4 to 5 years. And you can just see that's just data. That's not an opinion. That's data. And this is what impacts, liquidity flows. And liquidity flows are what impacts, whether we have a 4-year cycle or a 5-year cycle. That's just a matter-of-fact statement. And then you have the business cycle, which historically has always been an indicator of the top, but it's lagging behind, and that's because liquidity is at a different place right now. And so I do find that particular argument compelling. I do not believe we're in a bear market. And if I'm wrong, then fine, sucks to suck. Maybe I'll get it wrong, but I'm just like, all I can do is be honest. And sometimes I'm gonna be wrong about stuff, but all I can do is be honest. I do not think we're in a bear market, and I'll eat those words if wrong. Fine, not a huge deal. I don't have an ego, so it won't be like that bad of it. It's not fun. It's not fun for any human to say they're wrong, but I won't have that hard of a time saying I'm wrong if I'm wrong. I just don't think I am. I'm just being honest. I genuinely don't think I'm wrong about this. And if there's a good reason to think that, just please don't just show me charts. Give me macro reasons also. Use all of the puzzle pieces to persuade me. If you're only looking at chart stuff, then I can show you. There's all sorts of analysts who point out positive chart stuff that says, hey, we're actually not in a bear market. So then we're just going back and forth about little chart metrics. What about, can you show me that stuff? Fine. But then tell me what the hell's going on with macro and why your thesis is better than Raoul Paul's and Julian Biddle's and TechDev. But if you can't do that, you're probably not going to persuade me. Just saying. But I am open-minded. If you've got a good argument, I do want to know it. So you can see where he's at right now. It's structurally, everything's the same. It's just lengthened right now, if this thesis is indeed correct. And you want to see that. If Bitcoin is taking longer to top, so are altcoins. The asset class moves in tandem. Here's a post from chart analyst Matthew Hyland, and he says, altcoins are about to enter a multi-year bull market against Bitcoin after a 4-year bear market. And if you think about it, so fine, we had that pump in late 2024 for a lot of altcoins. But since then, I mean, that wasn't like a true alt season, I wouldn't say. And a lot of those coins have already fallen over 90%. So XRP's held up particularly well, let's just say that. And I mean, that's very obviously true. But given that we haven't had an actual alt season in several years, what are we saying? Like, we're going to go another 4 years without having one? So we're going to have an 8-year period where there's just no alt season? Because reasons, despite what's happening with global liquidity, just none of that's going to flow into those particular risk-on assets? Really? Because reasons? Okay, folks, well, I don't buy it. Let's talk about XRP for the rest of the video, though. Here's a post from chart analyst Dom, XRP update. I haven't been updating much as, honestly, nothing meaningful has happened here yet. And he posted this, by the way, late morning, 11:52 a.m. today. It says, my focus is on regaining the monthly RVWAP, which has failed to hold for nearly 2 months. That will send us back to the 240s, meaning $2.40 range, which would make this chart look much better and have signs of a trend change. The order books are also clear as can be, so whoever stays aggressive up here will win. We do not want to see anything under $2 again. That would sound the alarm that the year-long range might be ending. And it is true that XRP's been in a particular range, a lot of it mostly between $2 to $3 for this year, which I love to see, because most of the time I've been holding XRP, it's been more like 20, 30, 40 cents. It's just been ranging around there for like the better part of a decade. And so now to see that its new level, its new norm is between $2 to $3, I'm pretty thrilled about that. And I believe it's just going to keep trending higher as time passes. So I'm just going to wait. I don't choose when markets pop, but I do choose whether or not I have exposure when that inevitably happens. And I have chosen that I'm going to be here. And that does mean I have to endure all of the volatility in between, but I'm an adult. And I'm going to suck that up because I can't control that. I'm at peace with that, and it's fine. Doesn't mean the price won't go higher just because it goes lower in the short term. That is not what that means. That's not how market works. Volatility is real. It's been here for 16 years. Ever since the inception of crypto, the most volatile asset class on the entire planet. So just make peace with that. Here's a post from chart analyst Dark Defender. He says, XRP yearly candles form the cup and handle. And you can see the pattern on the screen right here. That's the schematic, if you will. He says the pattern is waiting for further surge. He cited supports at $1.88 and $2.10. But more interestingly, targets, much higher, he still believes they're coming, $5.85, $18.22, and $36.76 for this market cycle. He thinks it's plausible we're going to get that high. Now, I'm skeptical of you start getting up that high. I'm starting to go, you sure about that? I won't say it's impossible. It's just, the higher you go, logically, of course, I'm going to be less confident if you're talking this market cycle. But I certainly don't think that's crazy at some point in the future. No, there's way more than enough money on the planet to make that happen. And with XRP being an obvious early winner in the crypto space, you let enough time pass, things happen, folks. This is just how it works. But you have to be patient. That is not a suggestion. That's a requirement. Here's a post from chart analyst X-Force Global. He shared a video, his most recent video here, and he was giving his articulation as to why he still believes that in this market cycle, you are going to see XRP hit $20 plus He still firmly believes that that's coming. He is not switching to bear mode just because that's the popular opinion now. He insists that we are going much higher. Chart analyst Cryptolica, he's in the same camp here. He said, XRP Mare multiple bands, 100-week moving average. This is not cycle top. And you can see on the upper end, you're looking at each XRP hitting $26.66. He is also not wavering. And just to be clear, the vast majority of analysts that I follow are still bullish. So I'd say this. Most analysts in general have already flipped bearish. Almost all of them have. The analysts that I follow, almost none of them have. It's like three, I think it's like 3 of them out of the dozens and dozens and dozens that I follow, with a handful of others on top of those 3 that I cited, a handful of others acknowledging that it's possible that maybe we're going to be entering a bear market, but they're not really willing to commit to that. They're not fully convinced. And then everyone else, so the vast majority of those analysts that I follow, say, no, we're still in the bull market. And they were right about the bottom. People are screaming about them. When they were calling the bottom in when was it? The beginning of 2023, when Bitcoin was around like $16,000, and that was a minority opinion. And these analysts are right though, and so credit where it's due. And there's a reason that I follow who I follow. None of them are perfect, but I don't expect that. If you expect perfection, you're not allowed to get anything wrong. Then there are no analysts to follow. There are literally 0 analysts on the planet to follow if that's your criteria. So that'd be stupid criteria. But I'm just telling you, that's why I follow a ton of analysts, and then I treat that as like the sample size, and then you can get a pretty good feel for what's probable. Like when tons of analysts that I follow, when they all believe roughly the same thing, they're almost always right. And the vast majority are saying, no, we're going higher, even if it takes a little while. Here's a post from Chart Nerd. He says, XRP Wyckoff reaccumulation should not be ignored. This setup is strikingly similar. And you can see the schematic right here, and he does believe that we're either at the bottom or close to the bottom, and then we are going to rocket up much higher. So he's been steadfast in that, and he's been sharing additional posts I'm not sharing in this video that just happen to not be, but he's still calling for on the higher end $27 XRP roughly for this market cycle. He's not wavering on that. Here's a post from chart analyst Papeso. XRP is about to pump. Same pattern, same structure, same all. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, now this concept I absolutely buy into. This would be the historical norm. You get one major pump, then you move sideways, then you get another pump, and then that's it for the cycle. We've only gotten one major pump right now. And the fact that we haven't gotten the second one yet, I was hoping we would have gotten it by now. But if Raoul Paul is correct and we're not topping perhaps for another 7 months or so, perhaps, if that ends up being the case, because of the debt refinancing and that impacted the liquidity cycle, well, yeah, that would. But the idea that XRP would have hit its peak without a euphoric blow off top, that's the part that makes me say, no, we're not done. We did not have a crazy euphoric blow off top. As soon as we have that, I'm gonna be like, yeah, guys, the end is near. But so even though the price of XRP has pumped, it hasn't been the crazy euphoric top. It hasn't been in tandem with an alt season. All those things still need to happen, or else I'm just not going to be convinced that this is it. I just don't think that human behavior is going to shift. Humans still have the same DNA that they did several years ago. They're going to behave the same in similar circumstances. We just need to get the liquidity to where it has been, because that's a key trigger. That's a major trigger for that. Here's a post from Crypto Wizard. It says, and this is XRP, says, sharp declines. An inverse parabolic decline has arrived again. Sharp declines often precede an equally violent rally. Will XRP follow the same course this time? Patience pays. And so even though it is the case that we've mostly been, we've been in a range, like I said, $2 to $3 range. You can see a point where over a short term, say most of the first half of the year, you can argue, and I think that's kind of what he's getting at, like it looks like maybe there's kind of a trend down. It was still in a range, but then you broke to the upside, and he's just kind of wondering, okay, since July when it hit its all-time high, $3.65, he's arguing it looks like it's kind of trended down, even though we are still in a range. Is this the moment where we finally rip to the upside? And so that's the idea that he's pondering there, but he still thinks the best is yet ahead. He's been calling for double-digit price action for XRP too. Here's a post from chart analyst Crypto Tony. He looks like he's flipped. Just several days or so ago, he was kind of bearish, thinking XRP could dip down to like $1.50 or so, something like that. And now he says XRP is going higher over the next few weeks. Christmas rally, please. Now, in his defense, though, I will say there are some other analysts I follow, and I've highlighted them. Like, for instance, Credible Crypto. He says XRP could, he's not predicting it, but he says XRP could go down to like $1.60. But in the same post where he warned about that, he's like, but then after that, it goes to all-time highs. That wouldn't break higher time frame structure. So even if that were to happen, not the end of the world, he says. Here's a post from CW. Says the sell wall for XRP exists at $2.30. If this sell wall is broken, there are no other sell walls until $2.50. So thin air above, and we're not far off from that. We actually got pretty close to that within the last 24 hours or so, didn't we? And that's the level that chart analyst Tara is talking about here. She says XRP also missed its critical fib touch at $2.30 by 1 penny. It could attempt to reach that level now on this wave up while Bitcoin goes to its 382 resistance. Super critical moment on XRP. $2.03 is the macro 382 level on XRP that needs to be reclaimed in order to help confirm the bottom. As long as XRP is below this level, another touch on the critical $1.88 level is possible still and undetermined. It can bounce between these major fibs as long as it needs to build support. And so she still thinks it's possible. And she's been saying that for a few days. It's possible you could go lower. So she's one of the analysts that I was actually referencing. But she's still optimistic. Like, even if that happens, okay, shake out everything needs to be shaken out and then rip to the upside. That's the general sentiment. I'm paraphrasing there, of course. Then there was this from chart analyst Ali Martinez. He was warning about a potential bottom around $2, which we pretty much got to in recently. And then he said here, just last night actually, XRP bounced off the bottom of the channel and could be heading toward the midpoint around $2.60. So he thinks there's a chance we'd be ripping much higher in the short term here. I just don't think this is done, folks. Even if this is a relief rally and we go to the downside, somebody give me a good reason to believe that everything's over if it's over. And you've got to include macro arguments, not just chart stuff, or I will not find it sufficiently compelling. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.